Chapter 4: Inclusive Growth and Related Issues. Socioeconomic inequalities, disparities and discriminations have been the structural attributes of highly diversified and stratified Indian society. The philosophy of Indian constitution and policies of the governments after independence have been incessantly emphasizing on social justice, upliftment of SCS, STS, OBCs and minorities, as India follows the ideals of welfare state. But still the gap between rich and poor has widened in the era of globalization. Indian perspective on inclusive growth. 2 decades of economic reforms have made India one of world's fastest growing economies, though the Indian growth story has been one of high gross domestic product, GDP, growth, but it has been mainly due to growth in services sector. Thus, not all sectors of the economy have grown at relatively same pace, resulting in poverty, jobless growth, marginal agricultural productivity, poor educational outcomes, inadequate health services, social inequalities, rural-urban divide and imbalanced regional development. A lack of inclusive growth results in inequities, which has its own social ramifications. Inclusive growth promotes economic and sustainable development by increasing the participation of people with a stake in the process of economic development. Concept of inclusive growth. According to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, inclusive growth is both an outcome and a process. On the one hand, it ensures that everyone can participate in the growth process, both in terms of decision-making for organizing the growth progression as well as in participating in the growth itself. On the other hand, it makes sure that everyone shares equitably the benefits of growth. Inclusive growth implies participation and benefit sharing. Participation without benefit sharing will make growth unjust, and sharing benefits without participation will make it a welfare outcome. Inclusive growth basically means broad-based growth, shared growth and pro-poor growth. It decreases the incidence of poverty in a country and increases the involvement of people into the growth process of the country. (3232) General Studies, Mains, Paper 2. Inclusive growth by its very definition implies an equitable allocation of resources with benefits incurred to every section of the society. But, the allocation of resources must be focused on the intended short and long-term benefits of the society, such as availability of consumer goods, people access employment, standard of living, etc. Need of inclusive growth. The need of inclusive growth are as follows for income disparity. According to the latest Oxfam report on inequality, top 10% of the Indian population holds 77% of national wealth. India's growth has primarily benefited an urban elite and middle-class population, who are engaged largely in the fast-growing services sector. However, around 70% of the poor are from rural areas where there is a lack of basic social and infrastructure services, such as education, healthcare, electricity, drinking water, roads and communication. The vulnerable sections such as women, laborers, scheduled caste groups, tribal populanon, religious minorities and disabled person is curricular or lagging behind in job opportunities, earnings and human development. An estimated 90% of the Indian workforce is engaged in the informal or unorganized sector. Workers in this sector have virtually no social security. For regional disparity, a significant reality that interstate as well as intrastate regional disparities continue to exist in India. Low growth rates and poor public services in the poorer states further widens the disparity in development. This can be attributed to poor governance. Most of the low-income states such as Jharkhand and Odisha have rich natural resources, but poor infrastructure and human development. The deprivation and exploitation of millions seems to be turning them against the system as they find themselves more and more excluded from the welfare and protective character of the state. This disenchantment and exclusion of the masses is getting translated into a variety of social and political conflicts and manifests itself as agitations, riots, resistance, militancy, and even demands for secession organized around caste, class, communal, regional, and ethnic lines. For demographic dividend, as per UN Population Fund, UNFPA, demographic dividend means the economic growth potential that can result from shift in a population's age structure, mainly when the share of the working age population, 15 to 64, is larger than the non-working share of population. Make in India and Skill India programs have been started to make optimal use of our demographic dividend. It provides India an opportunity in terms of huge proportion of working class population. This opportunity can only be reaped if an inclusive approach is adopted in our planning, policies, and implementation. Above all, it is inhuman to deny access and opportunities to millions to participate in growth process as well as share benefit from the fruits of growth and development. Inclusiveness in every sphere must be viewed as basic human right rather than merely a welfare approach. The Constitution of India has also enumerated certain provisions in preamble and directive principles, so as to promote inclusive growth. These include a socialist society based on values of justice and equality. Thus, inclusive growth needs to be achieved in order to reduce poverty and other social and economic disparities and also to sustain economic growth. Inclusive growth is also a key component if India is to fulfill its Sustainable Development Goals, which 193 United Nations member states aim to achieve by 2030. Elements of inclusive growth. Inclusive growth is a multidimensional concept, which includes the following concepts. Social inclusion. Social inclusion aims to empower poor and marginalized section of the society. That's why it is central to ending extreme poverty and fostering shared prosperity. Social inclusion is both an outcome and a process of improving the terms on which people take part in society-based activities.
వస్తున్నా.
Inclusive growth and related issues. 33. Economic inclusion. Economic inclusion refers to the opening up of economic opportunities to the disadvantaged sections. It is considered integral to development. With economic inclusion, people are more likely to participate in workforces, pursue education, and engage in other activities that lead to economic growth. Regional inclusion. The fruits of high economic growth did not reach to the semi-urban, rural, and tribal lands. The haphazard growth process benefited only metropolitans, leaving out the distant hinterlands of India. The neglect of Northeast and other eastern regions have given rise to parochialism and separatism, Regional inclusion seeks to eliminate this intra-regional disparities so that every part of India enjoys the benefit of growth process. Financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is the delivery of financial services at an affordable cost to sections of disadvantaged and low-income segments of society. The poor and disadvantaged groups are far away from the access of financial services of the banks. Thus, there is an pressing need to promote financial inclusion for welfare of hitherto neglected citizens. Till 2015, after 2 decades of banking and financial social safety net sector reforms, significant proportions of Indian population did not have access to bank accounts. In this regard, to further the agenda of financial inclusion, government launched Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. It resulted into adding 27.7 crore accounts. Further, latest global Findex database from World Bank highlights that almost 80% of adult Indians have bank accounts. Digital inclusion. Digital inclusion enables the people to access and use information and communication technologies, ICT, at an affordable cost. A digitally inclusive society is important to economic and workforce development, civic participation, education, healthcare, and public safety. Environmental inclusion. The rampant exploitation of natural resources amid flouting environmental norms and lack of environment assessment on the basis of standard parameters has resulted in its degradation. This has not only threatened the existence of livelihoods of millions dependent on forest produce, but also resulted in extinction of natural flora and fauna critical for survival of humans. Thus, the fate of the country depends upon due regard for environment conservation so as to achieve sustainable high growth. Strategy for inclusive growth. Inclusive growth seeks to redirect and broaden the flows from the globalization towards the hitherto excluded beneficiaries. It has 2 strategic pillars which are mutually reinforcing. 1. Creation of greater opportunities enabling sustainable growth. 2. Diffusion of opportunities in terms of enabling a crest through investment in education, health, and infrastructure. The key components of the inclusive growth strategy includes a sharp increase in investment in rural areas, rural infrastructure and agricultural credit for farmers, increase in rural employment through a unique and sharp increase in public spending on education and healthcare. The government should also undertake a variety of legislative interventions to empower the disadvantaged sections. This mammoth task cannot be done by government alone. Industry and civil society must partner with government to drive inclusive growth. Black Circle Civil Society has contributed with design and governance oversight. But the greatest lever for driving inclusion are jobs and skill training. Black Circle realizing income disparities and growing aspirations of the people. The government has been working to address these through programs like MGNREGA and Aadhaar. 3434. General Studies. Mains, Paper 3. Dimensions for Inclusive Growth. Telecom and Technology. The strategy for inclusive growth can be implemented under the following dimensions. Governance. The fundamental pillar of inclusive growth is the concept of good governance, which is understood as mechanism linking inclusion, decision-making, accountability, and transparency. Efficient governance will improve service delivery. Mechanisms with better outreach to the marginalized. It will enhance the chances of decreasing poverty and also reducing discrimination in access to basic public services, such as education and healthcare. E-governance seeks to widen the reach of public services as well as to make them more affordable and accessible. Good governance not only tends to design good policies, but also seek to strengthen institutions to implement these policies efficiently and effectively. Transparency and accountability, the two main pillars of good governance, are to be effected through the implementation of RTI-ACL involvement of local self-governments. Community and civil society groups can help in better monitoring of its implementation. Energy and resources. India's energy generation capacity and effective utilization is currently inadequate. This has resulted in unreliable power supply, which hampers agriculture and industrial growth and also causes large welfare losses. Reforms such as rational energy pricing, adoption of non-conventional energy sources, strengthening of regulations, improving distribution and minimizing theft and losses are essential for realizing inclusive growth. Resource endowments are not a constraint for most of the poor Indian states, as they are richly endowed with mineral and forest resources. India needs to implement reforms with a broad-based growth strategy backed by strong institutions. To provide telecom services at affordable prices. Multiple measures such as encouraging more number of mobile operators to infuse competitiveness, setting up of telecom centers of excellence and the coordination center in PPP models have been taken over the last few years. Due to sustained efforts of both public and private sector, the overall teledensity in India increased from 18.3% in 2007 to 92.84% in 2018. However, telecom penetration in rural areas stood at 58%, which points toward the rural-urban digital drive. For this technology upgradation and fiscal incentive to telecommunication companies is need of the hour. The Indian technology sector is now increasingly facing competition from other crowdsourcing, offshoring destination countries such as Vietnam and Philippines, especially in relatively low-skill services, such as voice-based call centers and data entry operations. Some of the lost advantages can be regained by leveraging high-speed wireless internet accessibility to set up rural or semi-urban BPOs. In addition to lowering costs, providing jobs and increasing incomes in the Tier 2 and 3 cities will also help in reducing the migration from rural areas to urban India. Infrastructure. Funding new infrastructure projects in terms of private participation will address only a part of the issue. In order to promote inclusive growth, systemic reforms are needed to fix the institutions and the processes used to create infrastructure. Public investment in infrastructure will have to bear a large part of the infrastructure needs in backward and remote areas to improve connectivity and expand the much-needed public services. Education. Quality education is often an important means to better jobs, increased income and an improved standard of life. The private sector can play a significant role in establishing new universities given its access to capital and physical infrastructure. But the regulatory regime for setting up and operating universities has to be reformed to enable faster approvals and accreditations. Inclusive growth and related issues. 35. In addition to increased private sector participation in formal education, there exists significant potential at the tertiary level in the form of setting up of additional vocational training courses and institutes. Globalization and the growth of sectors such as IT, BPO and financial services have led to an increased demand for knowledge workers. Economy is shifting from manufacturing-based to knowledge-based. Healthcare. Healthcare can be made more affordable by enabling all stakeholders, including private players and civil society organizations, to work collectively towards reducing the cost and expanding infrastructure. Health insurance coverage need to be expanded to minimize out-of-pocket expenditure. There remains significant untapped potential in aspects, such as frugal innovation in medical technologies, drug development and leveraging economies of scale to reduce costs with the help of private players. Challenges before inclusive growth. The Circa E challenges before inclusive growth are as follows. Black circle corruption coupled with black money is diverting funds meant for inclusion. A complete linkage between politicians, bureaucrats and the criminal elements, siphoning off the benefits of inclusive growth. Black circle poor governance and bureaucratic inefficiency coupled with policy logjam has adversely affected several social sector programs. Black circle concentration of developmental activities has largely remained in and around urban agglomeration, thereby resulting in less investment in underdeveloped areas. Unavailability of basic services such as skill development, healthcare facilities to marginalized segments of the population makes them vulnerable to further alienation from the mainstream of society and enjoy the equitable fruits of development. Inclusive growth is possible only by enhancing the capabilities of women. Given the patriarchal nature of Indian society, emancipation of women through education and better paying jobs always poses a hurdle in front of policymakers. Stagnation of rural income coupled by falling returns on agriculture makes about half of Indian population vulnerable in this regard. Bridging the rural-urban divide in terms of infrastructure and diversification and value addition in agriculture holds the key for inclusive growth in India. Financial inclusion in India. Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance has taken an initiative to extend financial services to the large hinterlands unserved population of the country to unlock its growth potential. Rangarajan Committee has defined the financial inclusion in following manner. The process of ensuring access to financial services and timely and adequate credit where needed by vulnerable groups such as weaker sections and low-income groups at an affordable cost. The ministry therefore strive towards a more inclusive growth by making credit capital available to the poor and disadvantaged section. Expansion of banking infrastructure, opening new branches, zero balance bank accounts, banking correspondence and setting up of small branches etc., are a few of the modalities under financial inclusion strategies of the government. Black Circle inclusive marketing information, education and communication can be adopted by the Administration for Inclusive Marketing. The resource allocation of resources should be made in a way to benefit the general mass in short and long term. Public distribution system, PDS, is a classic example of reinforcing inclusive growth through proper resource allocation. Employment generation is the most vital of all strategies of inclusive growth. A research study carried under the aegis of Planning Commission shows that employment in total in general and in non-agricultural sectors in particular has not been growing. '36. General Studies, Mains, Paper 3. Financial Inclusion Index by RBI. The Reserve Bank of India (NAS) introduced the Financial Inclusion Index or the 7th of August 2021 to measure the number of people in the country that have access to King and Manchal services. Financial inclusion is the process of extending the reach of formal banking CESANC products to the unbanked USPU in the country. The index knows to cater information or various aspects of financial inclusion on sale from 0 to 10, wherein represents complete financial exclusion and OO indicates full financial inclusion. There are into BROAC parameters certain assigned weights access 5%, usage 45%, and quality 20%. FACH parameter consists of various dimensions computed based on 97 indicates. The phi index does it have a David? The fluoride index for the year ended March 2009 was 53.9 against 43% for the year ended March 2017. The index will be published every year in the month of July. Various new schemes related to inclusive growth. The successive government of the country had emphasized on inclusive growth in its policies and schemes. These policies focused on equitable regional growth besides providing equal opportunities for growth to all segments of the population. The brief survey of various schemes launched in past few years is given below. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, PMJDY, 2014. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, PMIDY, as National Mission for Financial Inclusion to ensure access to financial services, namely, banking, savings and deposit accounts, remittance, credit, insurance, pension in an affordable manner. The plan envisages universal access to banking facilities with at least one basic banking account for every household. The objectives of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana are as follows. Account can be opened in any bank branch or business correspondent, bank mitra outlet. PMDI accounts are being opened with zero balance. The beneficiaries would get RuPay debit card having inbuilt accident insurance cover of 1 lakh in life. Cover of T30.000. The plan also envisages channeling all government benefits to the beneficiaries' accounts directly by inking the same with Aadhaar card. Under PMJOYLL 2019, 37 core accounts have been opened with more than 1 lakh crore rupees deposited in them, truly envisaging financial inclusion. Atal Pension Yojana, 2015. Atal Pension Yojana is a scheme by government to encourage the unorganized sector workers to voluntarily save for their retirement, who constitute 88% of the total labor force. This shown is headed to replace the Swavalambhan scheme launched by previous government. It guarantees a minimum pension amount at the age of 60 and above to subscribers, which will vary depending upon their contributions. The minimum age joining this scheme is 18 years and maximum age is 40 years. Along with subscribers' contribution, the central government will contribute 50% of the subscriber's contribution, or $1,000 per annum, whichever is lower, for a period of 5 years. PM Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, PMJJBY, and PM Suraksha Bima Yojana, PMSBY, 2015. Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, PMBY, and Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, PMSBY, were launched on May 2015. The cover period under these schemes is the 1st of June or each year to the 31st of May of subsequent year. These schemes are administered through both public and private sector insurance companies in tie-up with scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, and cooperative banks. The PMJJBY is available to people in the age group of 18 to 50 years having a bank account who give their consent to join Enable Auto Debut. Aadhaar would be the primary KYC for the bank account. The life cover of 2 lakhs shall inclusive growth and related issues. 37. Be for the 1-year period stretching from the 1st of June to the 31st of May and will be renewable. Risk coverage under this scheme is for 72 lakh in case of death of the insured, due to any reason. The premium is 330 per annum, which is to be auto-debited in one installment from the subscriber's bank account as per the option given by him on or before the 31st of May of each annual coverage period under the scheme. The scheme is being offered by Life Insurance Corporation and all other life insurers who are willing to offer the product on similar terms with necessary approvals and tie up with banks for this purpose. PMSBY offers a renewable 1-year accidental death cum disability cover to all subscribing bank account holders in the age group of 18 to 20 years for a premium of 12 per annum per subscriber to be auto-debited from subscriber's bank account. The scheme provides a cover of 2 lakh for accidental death or total permanent disability and 1 lakh in case of permanent parole disability. Digital India, 2015. In order to transform the entire ecosystem of public services through the use of information technology, the Government of India has launched the Digital India program with the vision to transform India into a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. Digital India is an umbrella program that covers multiple government ministry and departments. It weaves together a large number of ideas and thoughts into a single, comprehensive vision so that each of them can be implemented as part of a larger goal. Digital India is to be implemented by the entire government with overall coordination being done by the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, DITI. Digital India aims to provide the much-needed thrust to the 9 pillars of growth areas, namely 1. Broadband highways. 2. Universal access to mobile connectivity. 3. Public Internet Access Program. 4. E-government, reforming government through technology. 5. E-Kranti electronic delivery of services. 6. Information for all. 7. Electronics manufacturing. 8. 2 for jobs and 9. Early harvest programs. As a result of Digital India, nearly all the government services are now available to public online in a hassle-free way. This has led to better delivery of public goods and services in nation. Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, 2015. This scheme was launched on the 8th of April 2015. J provides collateral-free loans to marginalized section of the society to further the agenda of inclusive growth. This scheme will increase the confidence of young educated or skilled workers to become first-generation entrepreneurs. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Kirban Mission, 2015. This scheme was launched by Prime Minister of India on the 21st of February 2016 at Rangaon in Chhattisgarh, with an aim at providing urban amenities in rural areas. The mission also includes development of economic activities and skill development. The preferred mode of delivery would be through PPPs while using various scheme funds. This scheme has been modeled on the existing provision of urban amenities to rural areas, PURAI strategy. Bharat Interface for Money, BHM 2016. BIM is developed by the National Payment Corporation of India, NPCI. It is an initiative to enable fast, secure, reliable cashless payments through your mobile phone. BIM is interoperable with other Unified Payment Interface, UPI, applications and bank accounts. Stand Up India Scheme, 2016. Stand Up India Scheme was launched on the 5th of April 2016 to facilitate bank loans between 10 lakh and I crore to at least one scheduled caste, SC, or scheduled tribe, street, borrower and at least one woman per bank branch for setting up a greenfield enterprise. '38. General Studies, Mains, Paper 3. Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana, PM SIM 2019. This enterprise may be in manufacturing services or the trading sector. In case of non-individual enterprises, at least 51% of the shareholding in controlling stake should be held by either an SC, street or woman entrepreneur. The scheme is anchored by Department of Financial Services, DFS, Ministry of Finance. Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana, PMVVY, 2017. This scheme has been launched by the government to protect elderly person aged 60 years and above against a future fall in their interest income due to the uncertain market condition, as also to provide social security during old age. Implemented by Life Insurance Corporation, LIC of India, it provides assured return of 8% per annum for 10 years. Saubhagya Scheme, 2017. The scheme Sahaj Brili Har Ghar Yojana, Saubhagya, seeks to ensure universal household electrification, that is, in both rural and urban areas. Under Saubhagya, beneficiaries will be identified using the Socio-Economic and Caste Census, SECC, 2011 data. The identified poor households will get free electricity connections. Other households not covered under the SECC will be provided electricity connections at a cost of 500. This amount will be collected by the electricity distribution companies in 10 installments. It is world's largest pension scheme, launched in February 2019. Aimed at workers in unorganized sector, this scheme provides assured monthly pension of 3,000 per month, and 50% of the pension shall be entitled to the spouse of beneficiary as family pension after the death of beneficiary. JAM Trinity. JAM Trinity refers to the consolidation of three critical spokes. LA, Prime Minister Jan Dhan Yojana, PMIDY, Aadhaar and mobile connectivity, in the wheel of economic policies that are meant to drive the financial inclusion measures to bring about an overall empowerment. JAM Trinity is one of the key reforms undertaken to deliver the Direct Benefice Transfer, DBT, scheme, including subsidies, minimum wage payments for various government schemes and other payments. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, 2019. This scheme was launched on the 24th of February 2019. It provides all small and marginal farmers with income support of 6,000 per year in 3 installments directly in their bank account. This scheme is expected to supplement the financial needs of small and marginal farmers and solve the problem of rural and agrarian distress. As of March 2019, 99.93 villages have been fully electrified by setting up power transmission lines and powerhouses. In the process, more than 2.5 crore households are provided electricity, with PMGKY 2020 merely 18,574 households remaining to be electrified. All the states and UTS, barring Chhattisgarh, have achieved 100% electrification. Ayushman Bharat, 2018. This scheme was launched in 2018 to address health issues at all levels: la primary, secondary and tertiary. It has two components. Under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, an insurance cover of 5 lakh per annum is provided to the eligible families. This amount is intended to cover all secondary and most tertiary care expenditure of poor segments among population. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. This scheme was launched on the 26th of March 2020 to provide livelihood and food security to the poor segment of the population who suffered most due to pandemic caused by coronavirus. It provides for insurance cover of 50 lakh per health worker affected by COVID-19. Under this scheme, 20 crore women Jan Dhan account holders is entitled to receive 500 per month for next 3 months. Further, 80 crore poor people will be provided with free 5 kilograms of rice or wheat besides 1 kilogram of preferred pulses per month for next 3 months. The BPL families will also get free LPG cylinder for next 3 months under the Ujjwala scheme. Inclusive growth and related issues. 39. Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. 2021. The Union government has launched Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission on the 27th of September 2021. It will create a seamless online platform that will enable interoperability within the digital health ecosystem. The digital ecosystem will also enable a host of other facilities like digital consultation, consent of patients in letting medical practitioners access their records, etc. The mission will connect the digital health solutions of hospitals across the country with each other. Every citizen will now get a digital health ID and their health record will be digitally protected. PM Gati Shakti, 2021. The PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity is essentially a digital platform to bring 16 ministries including railways and roadways together for integrated planning and coordinated implementation of infrastructure connectivity projects. It was launched in November 2021. IR will incorporate the infrastructure schemes of various ministries and state governments like Bharatmala, Sagarmala, inland waterways, dry, land ports, Udan, etc. Economic zones like textile clusters, pharmaceutical clusters, defense corridors, electronic parks, industrial corridors, fishing clusters, agri-zones will be covered to improve connectivity and make Indian businesses more competitive. PMDA KSH Yojana, 2021. The government has launched Pradhan Mantri Dakshta Aur Kushal Sampan I Grat, PMDA KSF, portal and app in August 2021 to make the skills development schemes accessible to the target groups of backward classes, schedules castes and Safai Karamcharis. It is being implemented by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment from the year 2020-21. Trains to make a lean kill development schemes accessible to the marge groups. Kijable target groups are being provided skill development training programs on upskill. K skilling short-term training program, long-term training program and entrepreneurship development program. PM Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana, 2021. The Pradhan Mantri Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana, PMASBY, was launched in October 2021 as one of the largest pan-India schemes for strengthening healthcare infrastructure across the country. The objective of PMASHY is to fill critical gaps in public health infrastructure, especially in critical care facilities and primary care in both urban and rural areas. The significance of PMASBY is immense as people will have access to a full range of diagnostic services in the public healthcare system through a network of laboratories across the nation. Under the scheme, integrated public health labs will be set up in all the districts.